We are back. Revinyl.
Yep.
We're at it. We're getting so close to number 50. The excitement and tension is building.
You like that number.
Yeah, and I think, I've had calls this week from CNN and Fox News and Wall Street Journal wanting to cover our 50th anniversary. I'm joking. Our 50th. Actually, we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary as well. Our
Yeah, that's
first
true. Right.
podcast was May 17th of last year.
Nice. Okay. Didn't know that.
So by the time we we may be celebrating our 50th show and 1 year at the same time.
Very cool.
Okay. We're just going to jump right in. We've had some pretty fun episodes recently. The last one was really cool. I will say this. I went back and listened to Idlewild 100 Broken Windows this week.
Mhm.
It still holds up.
Oh.
It is such an incredible album.
Yep.
25 years later, and I think it still sounds just as good as it did. I was wondering, because sometimes that's not the case with
Right.
records, right?
Yep.
It still sounds great. Okay. So a couple weeks ago, I have this magazine from 1989. Rolling Stone magazine did their top 100 albums of the 80s. We thought it'd be fun to go from 100 down to 1, split it up into 20s, and just look at what they had, because I think there's some stuff that's higher, lower, might not even be in there if it was done again today.
Right.
There's other stuff that's probably forgotten or that wasn't in there that should have been. So we went through it last time. We ended off at 81 with Van Halen, 1984. So we're going to go 80 to 61. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off, Craig.
Go for it.
Number 80 in the Rolling Stone 100 Best Albums of the 80s, published in 1989. Number 80 is Suzanne Vega, self-titled record.
Cool.
From 1985. I have no opinion. I honestly never was a fan. I know she's talented. I'm sure she's amazing. I just never got into her whatsoever.
I went back and listened to it. It's good. Not blown away by it, but it's good.
Yeah. At that time, there were a lot of female folk singers. Tracy Chapman was my vibe. I thought her first record was stunning, and just even back then when I listened to it in 1989 or whatever year it came, 88 or 89, loved that album. But just Suzanne Vega for me just never moved the meter. Okay, 79 is Steve Earle, Guitar Town. Love Steve Earle.
I don't know the earlier Steve Earle stuff that well, to tell you the truth. I guess he's more revered now to me, and I've paid more attention to his more modern stuff just because he's been doing it for so long and he's still in the spotlight. But I don't really know him that well, to be honest.
I know that record, which is a lot of people say is his best record. It's not my favorite, and I haven't listened to it enough to say how to compare it against other records. I like his later stuff. I Ain't Ever Satisfied. I think The Hard Way, and then into his more current records are really incredible. Yeah. I need to go back and listen to this because it's one that everyone brings up when they talk about Steve Earle. Okay, number 78, and that was released in 1986, by the way, Guitar Town. Number 78, this is from 1982, and this is The Human League, Dare. I mean, I love that. I love their singles. I could tell you right now, I've never listened to an album by them from start to finish.
Yeah,
and that's not even to say that they're a singles band, but that's the only way I knew them was as a singles band. And they had some great singles, but that one's surprising to me at 78.
Yeah, I've never dove in. I have no knock one way or the other, but yeah, I've never dove in.
It's 15 spots ahead of Full Moon Fever, so that doesn't seem right. I'm just saying. I mean,
right.
Okay, and that debuted at number 3, probably on the strength of Don't You Want Me. I get it. Okay, number 77, one of the greatest artists in history, and I was going to say American artist, but he's actually not American. He's Canadian, but he's Americana to me. And that was Robbie Robertson's self-titled album, Robbie Robertson.
Good stuff.
From 1987.
Yeah.
I love him. I pretty much love everything Robbie's done, whether it's with the band or his solo stuff.
Yeah, good stuff.
Haven't listened to that. Haven't listened in a long time. How about you?
It's been a minute. I think that's one of Kevin's favorite albums. So anytime he plays it, it's kind of like anytime I play Peter Case, the first Peter Case
Yeah.
record, he plays it. And same thing with the Robbie Robertson. Every time he shows me, hey, this is what came up on the shuffle, I always follow suit. So it's a great album.
Showdown at Big Sky. Love that song. Okay. 76 was released in March of 1980. Highest chart position was 171. And the record is called Second Edition by Public Image Limited.
I could never really get into Public Image Limited. I had the one
Yeah.
with Disappointed, the real colorful. I can't even remember the name of the album. I had that one. It was definitely one of their kind of dancier records. It's after their post punk kind of stuff. It was good, but I've never been a huge PIL fan.
Same here. No opinion on them, honestly. Okay, number 75. Wow. This actually highest chart position was number 4. I'm shocked this wasn't a number 1 album. October of 83, because this stayed around on MTV and on the charts for a long time. And that's She's So Unusual by Cyndi Lauper.
Oh yeah,
Loaded with hits.
yep.
And I love her. She's a great talent. I would never sit down and listen to that album though, ever.
I I don't really have a liking or a disliking to her. If you
Yeah.
turn the channel or if you keep it playing, okay, whatever. No, not knocking her. I just don't really know her that well. I
Yeah.
admire the fact that she's still doing it. I admire the fact that she was so unique, and it's
Yeah.
in a time where I don't think people were as that open and that honest. So I do admire that, but it's like musically, yeah, I've never listened to an album and I can't see myself doing it.
Yeah. Same here. Okay. This is surprising. I would have thought this would have been much higher. And I think if this list were redone today, this would be way ahead of 74. So number 74 on their list, this is from March of 87, is Prince, Sign of the Times. That would not be 74 today.
No,
Of
I
the
think
80s.
that's it took time for that to sink in for people. For one, it's a double album, so it's
Yeah.
a little bit trickier. I think that one took a little bit of time because I think people were starting to realize how truly eclectic he was. He wasn't just
Yeah.
singles like he had off of the earlier albums,
Right.
1999
Yeah.
and the early ones like Controversy and stuff. He started to really branch out at that point, and that's seen now as maybe his masterpiece.
Yeah, and I think it was an album where there were hits on it, but it also felt more like a full realized record.
Right.
Purple Rain was amazing,
Yep.
had tons of hits on it. 1999, the same thing, but yeah, this is where I think he turned the corner from being a hit machine to an artist.
Right. Yep.
And I think it stood the test of time. People talk about that album more now probably than even Purple Rain. I mean, I'm talking music aficionados. If they talk
Oh, for
about
sure.
Prince,
Yeah.
that's the album that they're gonna reference.
Yep.
Okay, number 73, huge fan of this guy, and this was November of 1984. Wow, I can't believe this peaked at number 13, is Don Henley, Building the Perfect Beast. I love Don Henley. I love that record. There's so many great songs on that. The album after that, Into the Innocence, probably even better. But Building the Perfect Beast, what a great record.
Yeah. I think Into the Innocence, if you said that had only charted that high, I would have been surprised. Think for this one, I don't think it was quite. Did it have Dirty Laundry on it?
Had Boys of Summer, which that one on its own has stood the test of time.
Yeah.
That might be All She Wants to Do Is Dance is on there.
Yeah.
Sunset Grill. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I love Sunset Grill. The fact Boys of Summer
That
alone is
alone,
probably one of the most enduring songs of the 80s, honestly.
for
It's
sure.
probably top 25 enduring songs.
Yeah, that is
Great
shocking
song.
since that's on that album. I thought that was on End of the Innocence. Okay, cool. I'm not an
Yeah.
album guy for him, honestly. I haven't really dove in, so probably should.
Uh, yeah, it's been a long time since I listened to that album. Into the Innocence, I listened to a lot when it came out. It was so diverse. had Axel on it, and it just was such a great record, I thought. Okay, number 72. This will not surprise you that it only peaked at number 50, May of 1982. This would be in my top 10 records of the 80s, hands down. I don't even have to think about it. I know it would be there. Marshall Crenshaw's first album,
Oh,
self-titled Marshall Crenshaw.
yep.
It's almost it's very close to a perfect pop record, in my opinion.
Okay.
And it had one hit, right? Someday, Some Way. That was his one shot, really, at what a great song. But there are
Fantastic.
3 or 4 other songs on there that I like even more than that one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fantastic song. That I never could connect with that album quite the way you did. Kind of like
Mm,
how I feel about the Laws and you feel about the Laws. I think that album for me is a masterpiece. And you're like, I like it, but it's not, it's
yeah.
not, I don't feel the same way. I feel the same way about, I think Marshall Crenshaw is a great songwriter. I do think that album's a little dated sounding, but I usually dated for me is a good thing. So,
Yeah.
what's to say?
It stood the test of time for me. I still listen to it. I haven't listened to it in a while, but that's a record that I might go listen to today, and I would listen from start to finish. Just love it. I love the feel of it. It's a trio. I think his brother was playing drums at the time,
Yeah.
and it just has that sort of. I I think production wise, it's interesting. It maybe there are parts of it you listen to and go, yeah, that was definitely recorded in the '80s, but it's a really punchy production.
Hmm.
I like the way it just sounds. Okay. Number 71, also a debut record and also a great band that you and I both love. This is not my favorite album by them. In fact, this would be third or fourth of my favorite records by them, but that's Crowded House, the first record,
Oh, I do
the
love that.
self-titled.
I do love that album.
It
What can you say?
incredible.
I just love the band. So
Me too.
yeah,
Every record was so great. Woodface was so great. Temple of
excellent.
Low Men,
Yep.
Together Alone. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
In fact, those 3 records I'd put before this one. That's just for me. That I
I don't know
love
where I would put it.
like
It's
a
tough. I
perfect.
think they're all a toss up. I think we both agreed on Together Alone is their most underrated record.
Yeah,
I love
yeah,
that record. I love the airiness of it. I love the production of that record. It seems a little bit more dreamy than some of the other albums. But yeah, I have no arguments with any of those four. I
yeah.
put those four albums back to back to back to back up against pretty much anything out there.
Their first 4 records, just amazing and very little filler,
Yep.
very few songs on. I could play whatever that would be. It's probably 42, 44 songs over those 4 albums. There's I don't even know if there's a song that I don't like by them on
Yeah,
those first 4 records.
I agree.
They were on a roll. Neil Finn, love Neil Finn. Okay, number 70. Boy, this record was everywhere in the '80s. I'm surprised it's so far back. I would have guessed '40s or '50s, and it's probably the last truly great supergroup, and maybe the greatest supergroup of all time when you consider it had a member of the Beatles, ELO, um, and then of course Tom Petty, Bob Dylan, Roy Orbison. I was
Traveling
trying to
with
think of bands they were also with. I go, wait, they were early in bands.
they
But
were them.
Petty, Dylan, Orbison,
Yeah,
Harrison, and Jeff Lynne. Jeff Lynne was the least famous of those 5 guys,
for sure.
and he's an absolute legend.
Yep.
He's a great producer, great songwriter, great singer, everything, and he was the least famous of the 5. How I don't think you could ever construct another band
No.
that had more. I mean, you had arguably the greatest songwriter of the '60s
Hmm.
in Bob Dylan, arguably the greatest songwriter of, mid '80s to mid '90s in Tom Petty. You had a member of the Beatles who also was a great songwriter. You have
Yeah.
Roy Orbison, just incredible. And I love that album. I think it's a great record. What
It's
about you?
it's great. I think it's some people were surprised at probably how poppy it was. I loved it. I love that record. It took me forever to finally dive into it, and once I did once I realized how much I love Tom Petty, and it made me appreciate all the other artists involved. Because I was never up at that point. Once I recognized that record and loved that record, I wasn't a big Bob Dylan guy at that point, but it made me go back
Yeah.
and listen to Bob Dylan. Very different, but yeah,
Yeah.
excellent record.
Yeah, and there was one song on there, I think it's called Tweeter and the Monkey Man. That sounded like a Bob Dylan song, and he sang it. It was his song, but
Yeah,
that sounded like something that would have been on one of his records versus songs like You're Not Alone, definitely Roy Orbison. I mean, the record just had so much character and personality because each individual person sort of had their
their own
songs and
distinct style. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, 69, number 69, take a trip back in time before hip hop was really famous, well, I guess global and in the popular culture, it was just starting to take off. This is November of 85,
Okay.
produced by Rick Rubin, Radio by LL Cool J. I
Nice.
love early LL Cool J
Excellent.
was so powerful.
Yeah.
The first couple of
He
records,
had
I mean,
bite.
he was a game changer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had bite. He was that's the type of hip hop I'm nostalgic for. Like the
Yep.
early and look that there were earlier stuff, Sugar Hill Gang and being one of the first ones, but like to me LL, Run DMC, Cool Mo D is another one. I used to love Cool Mo D.
Yeah.
I love that era of hip hop. That's a great album.
It was yeah. Later, hip hop became more you got more into, gangster rap and telling the stories of, the things that happened on the streets.
Right.
But to me, the early era, and I'll include early LL Cool J in the early era, that was what I would call it was street music because
Mhm.
they were rapping on the street corners
Right.
and they were coming up with these unbelievable rhymes. And yeah, some of it sounds dated now when you listen to it. Some of the beats
Right.
sound dated, but what Run DMC and LL Cool J and Grandmaster Flash, what they were doing back then, that was the stuff they were. It was almost very similar to a folk singer in a coffee shop in
Yeah.
the '60s.
Yep.
They were telling stories and they were doing it in a very creative way. I love early LL.
Hmm. I
Great.
agree.
Okay. Number 68. This was produced by your pal, Elvis Costello. The second time on this list already that Elvis Costello has production credits. And this is from, actually, this is interesting. They included it even though it was actually released December of 79.
Yeah, I
I
know.
guess it just barely made it.
Yeah.
The Specials.
Specials. Fantastic album.
Yeah.
Fantastic
Yeah.
album. That album absolutely slays. It's great. It's considered ska, but it's so much more than that. It's such a great
Yeah.
record. Yeah.
I need to go back and listen to it. It's been years. Was Rudy on that?
Yep.
Message. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
What a song. I
Yeah.
mean,
It's
they
a
they
very
were
diverse record. They were punk, they were ska, they were soul,
yeah.
reggae. They just had so much influence. It was really cool. It was before people started to kind of mimic that style and it became a little kitschy. Um,
Yeah.
I love that album. Every time I go back to it, I'm just surprised they weren't more well known.
And then what, 25 years later, no doubt makes a fortune off of that sound,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
right? Yeah. Yeah. I need to go back and check that out again. And what
Oh,
a
no
cool
doubt.
thing that is that Elvis Costello produced that. I mean, and they were a racially diverse band, right? I
Mm.
mean, they
Yeah.
covered everything. That was at a time when that wasn't necessarily something you saw very often
Right.
was racial diversity in bands. So that was really cool too. Okay, number 67. I'll have no opinion on this, even though I think he's a great artist and his early stuff is incredible. And that's Randy Newman, Trouble in Paradise from 1983.
I I just sent a message to a friend of mine via text of something popped up, and I don't know if it came up on a shuffle or if he sent me something. But my comment to him is, I absolutely adore that man. He just recently played on John Mulaney has a show on Netflix called it used to be called Everybody's in LA. Now it's called Everybody's Live. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's very, very quirky. And he gets some really unique artists, and he had Randy Newman did 2 songs on that, and it's just he still got it. I mean, he's obviously up there in age, but he's still got that wit. He's one of the wittiest, sharpest, no holds barred singer songwriters ever. He does not pull any punches. There are songs that that just you nobody else could get away with. You couldn't get away with a lot of what he wrote back then. Now,
Oh no, yeah, the whole Good Old Boys record
oh my gosh,
just offended everyone.
yeah.
Probably. I mean,
That
you're
very
right.
if you, I mean, if you can get past the first song,
Yeah,
Rednecks. I mean, if you
yeah,
can get past that, I
yeah,
mean, I tell people, we would dive for the radio when would play stuff in the store. It got to the point where we couldn't play that record, and I was like,
yeah,
damn it, I want to play it because he's mocking it. It is
yeah,
all
yeah. He's not.
he could not be more progressive. He is doing things that people are just, especially now, everybody's so sensitive. But like "Sail On" to me is like one of the best records of all time. I
Yeah,
love Randy Newman, so there's not a record
yeah.
I've
His
heard from him I don't like.
He is a great songwriter. Yeah. Last thing I'll say about that record, "Good Old Boys," that would be as much as Southern Man by Neil Young inflamed Southerners. "Good Old Boys" was meant to really inflame Southerners, I think.
Absolutely,
The entire album. I mean,
yeah,
he was, but yeah, it's a fascinating record. I love his early stuff as well. I'm with you. Okay. All right. Number 66. I'm really glad to see these guys on the list, but man, I got to tell you, this isn't the album I know by them. Yellow Moon is the one that I used to listen to, but Neville Brothers,
yeah,
Bayou on the Bayou.
yeah. Great record.
I mean, those guys were just so talented. I
Yeah,
mean, Aaron, Art, Cyril, just amazing. But Yellow Moon, I thought was a great, great, great record. I've never listened to this one. Oh, I didn't have my ringer.
we've talked
I've
about
never listened.
Kevin and I've talked about Yellow Moon. I think he played that on when we were doing the group thing a while back, and it was so refreshing to go back and revisit that record because it's so. Um, it wasn't. I didn't really. I used to make fun of Aaron Neville all the time because he's just such a unique voice.
Yeah,
I'll sidebar for here a second. One of the funniest things I've ever heard is he said, "Have you ever noticed that listening to Aaron Neville is like listening to a radio station that cuts in and out?"
yeah, yeah, yeah. With his voice,
you know,
yeah.
but
He,
and I thought it was hilarious. But then I've gone back and listened to the Neville Brothers proper as a band, and I was like, damn, like they were incredible. So I'm not a huge fan of his solo stuff, but man, that band absolutely slayed.
I completely agree, and I got to go back and listen to them more. Really, really love them. Okay, number 65.
Yep.
July of '87. This is the one that kind of started it all for me, at least for this band. And for years, I even loved the early stuff. The Wishing Chair, I thought was an incredible album.
Yep. I know where you're going.
But
Yep.
yeah, In My Tribe, 10,000 Maniacs, they were
Hmm.
just game changing for me because I guess back to that folk thing. Yeah, I've never been a Suzanne Vega fan, and I don't really want to say they're alike, but they were both in that folk category at the time that was so massive in the
Yeah.
late '80s.
Yeah.
And 10,000 Maniacs were just on a different level to me. They were just
Well,
incredible.
I just don't see 10,000 Maniacs and Suzanne Vega anything close to Tracy Chapman. So the fact that they're lumped into folk isn't really accurate, in my opinion, at all. I think Tracy Chapman,
Yeah.
yes, definitely more folksy. I don't see Suzanne Vega. If you go back and listen to her records, it's a good bit more progressive. And I see 10,000 Maniacs as like the perfect vehicle for a singer songwriter that made her, because she's so, her personality comes out in the music. It's like you don't even have to see her live to understand how impactful she is live. It's just the articulation of her voice, her lyrics. I actually, when they first came out, I wasn't a huge fan. I didn't really dive into. I didn't dislike them. I just didn't really pay attention to them. But of course, as you get older and as you start to date in high school and college, all of my girlfriends loved 10,000 Maniacs. So I was
Yeah.
subjected to it, we'll say, to start. And I realized, wow, this is a really good band. Every good relationship I had 10,000 Maniacs was one of their favorite artists, including my current
Yeah.
wife. So, thank you for
Yeah.
introducing me. Thank you for the introduction. I would say the same thing about Tori Amos too. I know you're not a big fan, but I think
No.
10,000 Maniacs to me is one of those things that stands the test of time. And I wish Natalie Merchant was still out there doing it. Or if she is doing it, I wish it was more prominent.
Yeah. I'd love to see them get back together. Love to see them tour. I'd love to see them tour the early albums. The Wishing Chair, highly overlooked record, the
Yeah.
first one. I used to listen to that all the time. Loved it so much. And
Cool.
when In My Tribe came out, the first 3 songs on In My Tribe alone, What's the Matter Here, Hey
Hmm.
Jack Kerouac, and Like the Weather,
Right.
that is that is a trio of songs to kick off an album that I'd put up against a lot of other records. I mean, I think they were on a roll. I love In My Tribe. I think
Very nice. Yeah.
it is one of my favorites from the 80s. Okay, we'll keep moving here. Number 64. I know you love this band. I know Kevin loves this band. This was actually, you're going to be surprised. Did you know that Mick Jagger co-produced Vivid by Living Color?
I did
I
not
don't think I knew that.
know.
It
How's
says
that not
producers
more?
Ed.
How's that not more widely known? That's great.
Exactly. How do you and I not know that? I mean,
Right.
Mick Jagger, I didn't even know, I wasn't even familiar with him having co-production on any record, to be honest. And this was April of '88. This was really close around the time that the Still Wills record came out. And
Yeah.
so Jagger was pretty busy at the time. And I'm pretty sure he had a solo record around that time as well. But I know that he was a big fan of theirs. I mean, Vernon Reid, probably one of the greatest guitarists of the last 40, the post 60s guitarists. You know, if you get past the Beck, Clapton,
Yeah.
Hendrix, that next group has to include Vernon Reid in the conversation, right? With
Absolutely.
Satriani and Steve Vai and a few others. Vernon
Yeah.
Reid was bad dude. Still, uh, Corey Glover. They they were just so unique because, and I know you feel the same way. When they came out, I was thinking, because it wasn't heavy metal, but
No.
it was heavy,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it was
Absolutely.
aggressive, and
He played
but
a
it had, yeah,
No, he played a thrash style of guitar
yeah,
playing, but it was the juxtaposition of that and Corey Glover's soulful tone. And when
yeah,
you saw him, I just thought it was so cool that they had their own thing. He wore body glove, he wore
yeah,
all like spandex and stuff, and not
yep,
in an athletic way. Like these guys were studs.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I love that band. And I stand by the follow up to that, Time's Up too. I think that's a fantastic record. I think they're a great band.
Great band. They opened the door for so many other artists as well.
Yep.
It just, to me, that they were so good. Their songs were good, the musicianship, the performance,
Yep.
but the way they opened the door up makes them legendary and unforgettable. Okay, number 63. I know you love this record. I haven't listened to this in a long time. Gang of Four, Entertainment.
Oh, fantastic record.
I
I'm not
mean,
as into that style. There was a time when all I was listening to was Gang of Four and Mission of Burma and Echo
yeah,
and the Bunnymen. If you wanted to go in a similar but less avant garde kind of a way, but what I liked
Wire.
at Wire, yeah, same thing. And the funny thing with Wire is I liked their first album, Pink Flag, which was really more their punk
Oh,
record
yeah.
than I did
Yeah.
their more experimental stuff. And it's the same thing with Gang of Four. I thought Solid Gold was good. There's some great songs on that, but it wasn't as sharp. And they made punk and post punk danceable. That's what's cool about
Yep.
Entertainment. That that record you shake. I was talking about this with Kevin about something else, about a hard rock band. I was talking about Trapeze actually, and I go, Trapeze is one of those bands that just you bob your head, not in a headbanging way. You're doing it because you just can't contain yourself. It's so infectious, and that's
Yeah.
Gang of Four on a post punk level. It's so danceable. You just find yourself
Yeah.
just kind of shimmying. To me, it's uncontrollable. Yeah, that album is one of the best debut albums. It's a masterpiece. It really is. Not for everybody, but it's a masterpiece.
Yeah, and it influenced so much stuff. At Home, He's a Tourist. What a great song.
Oh my
And it
gosh.
just, you listen back to it and you go, okay, this is where a lot of the REM, U2, NXS,
Yep.
they all got the sound. They just made it more pop, more commercialized, or
Yep.
more accessible. But
Right.
Gang of Four kind of started a lot of that, or at least started to perfect it. Yeah, I
Absolutely.
love them, and I'm a big Mission of Burma fan too. I do love Mission of Burma.
Yep.
Okay, number 62. Come on. I mean, this is ridiculous. This this should not be 62. This should be number 7 or 8 from the 80s. I'm really disappointed here. And actually, I'm shocked that it was the highest chart position was number 2. This is a tough time because Michael Jackson just hogged the number 1 spot for forever.
Yeah.
This came out in January of '83, so exactly 1 year before 1984 came out, and it was produced by maybe the greatest commercially successful producer of all time in Mutt Lange.
Yeah.
This is Pyromania, Def Leppard. Give
Yeah.
me a break.
Right.
62 is an insult.
That's it.
I'd rather them not even include it in the list.
It's yeah, it's an ex. I mean, look, we've talked about this before. My introduction was to Def Leppard was this album. It was this album, and I will say my favorite album is High and Dry because I like a little bit of a harder edge from start to
Yeah.
finish. It's my hands down my favorite. But I would say that Pyromania is probably a better record. If you
The
talk about
Songcraft.
where the songcraft is, if you talk about just they knew how to rock, but they knew how to put out a hit. Like to me,
Yep.
Foolin' was just so who can take a stutter and make it and make it
Yeah.
work.
Right.
Foolin', Photograph. I mean, that whole
Rock of Ages.
Rock of Ages, and then you talk about like one of your Stage Fright is, I mean,
Love.
just a brilliant song. Yeah, this to me is a top. To me, it's at least a top 20 album of the 80s.
I'll go a step further. I think it's one of the greatest. Okay, I know there's other albums that were more influential,
Mhm.
other albums that may have better playing on it. But when you're just talking about a group of songs from first song to last song on a record, this is, in my opinion, one of the greatest records of the 80s, one of the greatest hard rock records ever. There's every song on that album could have been on the radio.
Yep.
It's unbelievable to me. Even the songs that weren't released as singles, Die Hard the Hunter
Die Hard the Hunter.
and,
Billy's Got a
like,
Gun.
Stage Fright, Billy's Got a Gun. I mean,
Yeah.
there was not a weak track. You look back and you listen to that album and go, "My gosh, what they didn't have a misstep on the entire record."
No.
And I just think, Coming Under Fire, I think is one of the best songs they ever did.
Yeah.
It's just hit after hit, even though they had, I think, 5 hits off of that record,
Right.
and then they lost me after that. Hysteria, Too Pop, Too Whatever for me.
Yeah.
This was that, and back to your point, High and Dry, and I loved On Through the Night too. It has its moments. It's very raw.
Yeah.
I think, Rock Brigade is such a great early '80s hard rock song.
Me and My One was a great single. So yeah.
Mm, yeah, great. Okay, last one. Quite a way to wrap this up because I will tell you, I listened to him. It's been a long time, and he has one record that everyone talks about that I can never. Every time I listen to it, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try one more time with Trout Mask Replica, and I'm gonna see if I like it, and I can't get into it. But
Yeah.
he did have some records after this. This is one called Doc at the Radar Station
Okay.
from 1980.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever listened to it,
I,
but I know some of his other stuff from that time period, and it's not bad. It's not nearly as I just think Trout Mask Replica is just so hard to listen to.
it is. Yeah, for sure.
But
Some people gravitate towards that. They just gravitate towards. I admire pushing the envelope. I truly do. But
yeah.
I'm past the point now of trying so hard to like something that people say is great and that's critically
Mhm.
acclaimed. I'm past that point. So when I hear something that I consider as noise, I just don't listen to it. And it's no disrespect to them. It's just there's a reason why it appeals to a smaller portion of the population. And there's a reason why it never really took off commercially. I don't think that's an album that sold a ton. In fact, I bet it sold more over the last 20, 30 years than it ever did when it was first released, because people are starting to see the influence of that once again avant-garde. Yeah, I was just never a big fan, and because of that album, I never checked anything else out except some of the stuff that he did with Zappa, and it was the
Yeah.
stuff with Zappa that I didn't like.
Yeah, and I'm not a huge Zappa fan either. I appreciate his genius, but just it wasn't my thing.
Yep.
Definitely Captain Beefheart, not my thing overall. I will say the album he did before this came out in '78. It was called Shiny Beast, Bat
Okay.
Chain Puller in parentheses.
Yeah.
The first song off of that is called, I was just looking it up here, The Floppy Boot Stomp. That is a really, really contagious song. Like
Okay.
I think that's
Cool.
a great it's the first song I'd ever really listened to by him that wasn't total noise from I tried Trout Mask Replica, hated it,
Yeah.
and then I tried this, the second record, not his second record, but the second try with him, and it has its moments. His voice bothers me a little bit too. I know it's kind of a, blues from 1930s. It's this weird combination of things, right? That
Right.
it just doesn't work for me. It's too much. But
Sounds like
like
a
I said, a lot
really
of people love them.
sounds like a really sour Dr. John for me, and that's not.
Right, right. I was thinking Dr. John. It is. It's a
I
yeah.
love
It's a
Dr. John,
sour Dr.
don't get me
John.
wrong, but
Yeah,
I don't like what he does with that style of voice. I love what Dr. John does, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. Anything that Dr. John plays on, you better bet it's probably worth listening to. The
Yep.
guy's just a genius.
Oh my
But
gosh,
yeah,
yeah.
I don't pull out Dr. John records. Okay. Well, we're going to stop there. We made it to 61. The next
Alright.
time we do this over the next couple of weeks, we'll go 60 to 41. It's getting really interesting because we're going to be getting into, I think, two things. One, some massive albums, and
Right.
number two, some really, really critically acclaimed records. I
Yeah.
don't even want to look ahead to
Yeah.
spoil it. I can see two of them already, and I have no opinion on the next two because they're both, I would categorize as critically acclaimed.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
Cool.
All right. Well, we'll shut down at this point. Next week we'll get back into some other, I'll call normal stuff as we get closer to our 50th show,
Yeah.
and we hit up some uncut again. But this was really fun. I love doing this.
Yeah, good stuff. Thanks for bringing that back out.
Yeah. Thanks for everyone for listening, and Revinyl will be back next week.
Alright.